Since the coming of the coronavirus in 2020 to the United States and the riots and protests on the streets, people have been interested more and more in the book of Revelation. Is the world coming to an end? Is Jesus coming back soon? Have the seals been broken? Are the four horsemen riding? Should we panic? And so I decided to teach through the book of Revelation. Join us. Now, just some very quick background. Revelation was authored by the disciple or apostle John, same one that wrote the Gospel of John. He's also the same one that wrote 1 John, 2 John, and 3 John. He is the disciple who Jesus loved. He wrote the book of Revelation probably around 95, 96 AD. Some people date it earlier, but most now conservative scholars will date it 95, 96. It's the last of the New Testament books probably to be written. And so the Apostle John was in prison during the reign of Emperor Domitian. Church was being persecuted, and he was in prison on the island of Patmos. That's one of the Greek islands. It's a really beautiful island. It's got bathtub blue water and great place to be, other than for the prison thing. And so while he was on the island of Patmos, he had these visions, these revelations, and it's prophetic literature. And this is one of the things about the book of Revelation that does make it difficult. John himself starts the book by calling it an apocalypse. Apocalypse means revelation. It is a disclosure of what is about to take place. He also calls it prophecy. The difference between apocalypse and prophecy, I would say, is prophecy tells us about the future, and apocalypse reveals the future as if you had eaten a loaded pizza and then gone to bed. It has strange images, it has these fantastic heavenly events. So it's sort of like prophecy on steroids. Revelation is prophecy, but it's kind of apocalyptic prophecy, which makes it hard to understand. But it's also a set of letters. The beginning of Revelation starts with 7 letters that Jesus had sent to 7 churches. And so Revelation is apocalypse, it's prophecy, it's letters, and it's very hard to understand. However, it's not impossible. So as we go forward, my approach is going to be to let the text speak for itself. Yeah, we're going to have to say, I don't know a lot. But I'd rather say I don't know than I'm very firmly confident and then be wrong. But we do have enough background to be able to understand a lot of what is in the text. I'm not saying it's all easy, but it's not all hard either. There are times when there will be very good Christians on different sides of issues of future events, and I will try to highlight that as we go through. But it's not my purpose to go ahead and lay out all the different positions and then take a vote. I'm going to sort of teach it as it is and be intellectually honest to say when there is a disagreement. So we'll talk about that. Now, one of the things that makes Revelation difficult is, as I started with, it's apocalyptic literature. And apocalyptic literature is notoriously difficult to understand because of all of the symbolism and strange language and strange images. You should read the book of Revelation even before we start this teaching. You'll see John says a lot of things like, well, it was kind of like this and it was kind of like that. And it looked like locusts and it looked like a head of a man. It looked like a lion. He's struggling for the words to explain something that is out of this world. And that makes apocalyptic literature rather difficult. So when we say we interpret the Bible literally, that doesn't mean there can't be figures of speech or types where something is representing something else. But we have to be very careful how we interpret that, and we will. So we will approach the text, read the text, let the text then read us so that we can be transformed into the image of Christ. And maybe the most important thing to understand about the book of Revelation. In fact, if you don't get this point, you'll never understand the book. The most important thing about the book of Revelation is that it is relating to promises that were made to Israel throughout the entire Old Testament. We'll see as we go on that most of what happens in the 7 years of tribulation, or all of what happens in the 7 years of tribulation, actually refers to Daniel's calendar. God had given Daniel in Daniel 9 70 weeks for the fulfillment of all time. But the last week, the 70th week, somebody stopped the clock just before the end of time was supposed to happen. There's a floating week out there, or putting it another way, there's a floating 7-year period out there. That would be called the Great Tribulation, and that's what most of the book of Revelation deals with. Not the first few chapters. The first few chapters are going to deal with the church and letters to the 7 churches. But the rest of Revelation is fulfillment of these covenants that God had made with Israel, with Abraham to make him a great people, to David that there would be an eternal king on his throne, and to Israel itself that God would write his law on their hearts. They would recognize the Messiah. So if we miss the fact that Revelation is really thoroughly Jewish, we'll have a tendency to miss what's really going on. So I'll keep bringing us back to that point. Now, the other thing to remember as we go forward is the focus of Revelation is not first and foremost to give us a roadmap for the future. It does. I mean, it is coming, and these events are coming, but that's not the purpose. And we can get lost. I've seen people do that. I see them become prophecy hounds where just fulfillment of prophecy, and what is this, and who is that, and did the Russians do this, and do the Chinese do that? Is the Antichrist this person? Become so focused on that, we miss the true focus of the book. What is the true focus of the book? Jesus. That's in the very first line.